Welcome back to Mr. Homemaker, the holiday edition.
We're Marcus and Kristen, and as you know, one of our favorite things to talk about is marriage and family life.
So we're going to summarize our most important high-level advice for any young couple.
Even from that early phase, recognizing that you're already starting to set in motion expectations for the rest of your relationship.
Sure.
Because not just are you and I going to have expectations,
Right.
but your future in-laws are going to start to have expectations around that, right? So if you start out spending every Christmas with your significant other's family, when you get married, they're not going to expect that to change.
Yeah.
And so just recognizing early on, it is exciting, but you should be already starting to think about what are the implications for this with if we were
successive chapter of
right.
your relationship. Yeah.
Right. Think about this in kind of three phases, right? The first phase being, so you're dating and you're serious enough that you're going to start talking about the holidays and having, who are we going to spend it with? And I will say that I think those very early conversations it's fun, right? It's just
Yeah.
you're still a kid in your house because you're not yet married, essentially, right? You're still going back and it's you don't have responsibility to cook anything or you just show up with a present and your boyfriend comes along
and dirty laundry
and dirty laundry for right. And so I think in that phase it's a lot of fun and you're kind of nervous, learning a little bit about the other person's traditions, but then you get married and it all changes.
The first and most important thing is that you begin the holiday season with a teamwork mentality. We're on the same team. We know that the holidays are going to be demanding, and we're going to approach them together, helping each other out.
Putting time aside to check in with one another to kind of see how things are going, are there concerns, how do we navigate these things together? And just making sure that you're being flexible in the expectations that you're coming in with and the need to potentially change as you go through and recognize hey, let's revisit this. This doesn't feel like it's working. How can we make this something that's positive for us?
Yeah, and then on the other side of it, once you're actually in the process of visiting with family, whether you're the the host or the guest, having the best possible mindset of we always talk about assuming positive intent, but also trying to make it a pleasant experience for the guest, the person who's out of their element, being extra thoughtful and accommodating of them. While as the guest, you can be more flexible and more less judgmental and more go with the flow because it's not your environment and you don't know what to expect and you have to kind of go with it.
Right. For instance, maybe you are coming into a family that eats dinner and then waits a significant amount of time before they eat dessert at Thanksgiving.
Which is fine. It's just when it's not communicated, it can be very confusing. When everybody's talking about what will be for dessert, and then they clear the plates, and then they all leave the room. And you're wait, didn't we just all agree that we were going to have dessert?
You need time to digest.
I didn't get that memo.
You're at a house where suddenly everything's taken away and then you're eating dessert and you're what? I literally just ate 3 plates worth of turkey and mashed potatoes.
You should have saved 6.
Well, that's interesting too because thinking through how you can incorporate your if you are coming to my family's for Thanksgiving, one thing is, what is there a dish that you really like that either I can learn the recipe from your mom or maybe you come to bring that?
That's a great question.
Right? Are there things that we can incorporate into our holiday that make you feel at home too?
Yeah.
So what is a food that what's your favorite food that my mom, that comes from my Thanksgiving? And
I would need you to remind me of what they're. I need a menu.
That is messed up.
What's the green bean thing?
We don't do the green beans, so I
That's
don't know
the
where you
thing
have that.
No, that's the thing. You were saying something.
Oh, the green bean casserole with the onions on it.
Yeah.
Super. I just went shopping today and I didn't get that. I guess I'll be going back. Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
That was my mom's, my aunt and uncle just did that, and I just never got into it, but I could do that.
What's your favorite dish on Thanksgiving?
Stuffing. My Nana's stuffing recipe. But I also love mashed potatoes with lots of butter. But they got to be like smooth, no lumps in the mashed potatoes.
Oh, see, I like lumps.
I know.
I like chunky peanut butter.
Ugh, it's like not good. And I love, I love it all. I love all of Thanksgiving food. I love the rolls, those like, then you got to have the little like green olives, black olives, little
tiny pickles.
Gross pickles, but they got to be there in a dish separated by 3.
I will be eating them.
I got to go get those too. And
this is really just turning into a grocery list making
from
video.
your family, I like the sweet potato with the like candied nuts on it that your brother makes. That's like legit. It's just totally bad for you, but I really like it. Let's move from like being in this first party relationship to like getting towards marriage, right? Like you're in a serious relationship.
Yeah, you're living together.
You're gonna start having to merge your, traditions and expectations. I think that is the key word, right? Is the expectations. And so I think a lot of people just go into it and just kind of it happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think just like we talk about like strategic planning for your family, I think you have to like stop and really talk about like what do the holidays look like and recognize that as a married couple, you are now forging a new path. And some of those things may include what your family did, and some other things may include what my family did.
On this channel, we want to help other couples navigate these early stages of their relationship, not just during the holidays, but year-round. So if this kind of content is helpful to you, please subscribe. One thing that you brought up is like, even if you have like a similar religious background and like you think on the surface level, at least, like our expectations are probably the same, it is more common today than it used to be, as the Klemps talk about in the 80-80 marriage. It's a lot more common today for couples who might have like grown up in different parts of the country and then they meet at college, or when they, like we did, like we met in a third place, which was nowhere near where either of us grew up.
Right.
Like through work, in a professional setting.
Right.
And so it's much more common when you find your spouse through that kind of like melting pot process, that once you actually undertake to create that family culture, there's gonna be a lot more stuff that has to be ironed out than there would be if you marry somebody who grew up in the same town as you did and raised by a family that also grew up in that same town. Like you're a multi-generational, like we've all been in going to the same church for 3 generations. Right. There's gonna be very little for us to iron out because we're already like on the same page, we're in the same place, reading from the same playbook. So anyway, so the Klemps talk about how that is, again, like sort of a generational phenomenon that is creating friction in marriages today that did not exist 2 generations ago.
Be open and honest with the things that are really important to you and the things that are maybe somewhat important to you and like things that don't matter to you. Because you may find, just like in a negotiation, right? We're both starting from here, but we recognize that we actually have this much shared ground. Like maybe this holiday is really important for me and it's not for you. Okay, great. Well, we're one step closer. So then you're really only talking about the stuff where there really is friction and you have to figure out how to work through that, but not just kind of talking about holidays in general, which I think become like an overwhelming thing to consider. Well, because I think there is, so I think in marriage, you should not be 50-50, but I do think there is a time and a place for fairness in a marriage. And it's like, and I say this knowing that I'm like the pot calling the kettle, right? Because we do like, I'm going to keep upping the number, like 90% of the things with my family. Yeah. And so, but so
shouldn't you be arguing against fairness?
Because
you started arguing against yourself. You should be saying like, we spend way too much time with my family.
Well, no, what I'm saying is like, I know that I'm lucky, but that like, if you were to try to go beyond, like if you were like, well, I want like 70%, I'd be like, no. Like, so.
I'm gonna have to edit all this out. And throughout the season, but honestly, I would almost say before you get into the thick of it, but maybe before and after every major holiday, is setting aside some time to like fill your buckets together. If you don't have kids yet, filling buckets is a big metaphor that's used a lot in elementary schools, but like.
And then Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. So
we haven't gotten to that book yet. Yeah, but you need to sort of recharge your emotional battery, both as an individual, but also like making another metaphor that's used a lot is like your emotional bank account. You have to make deposits of like building like warmth and happiness together as a couple, because when those challenges come and you're making withdrawals on that like account of like good feelings, right? When there's tension or stresses, like you want to have a lot in the reserve that you can draw upon. So taking the time to do that between, in anticipation of those like major holidays, especially if there's travel and there's gift giving and there's budgets and all those things to manage.
Yeah. I think starting that from a place of feeling full versus feeling stressed is going to be put you in a very different position, because there will inevitably be stresses throughout the holidays. And so making sure that you're doing your best to really help your partner. But that extends also to communicating and coordinating with people outside of your family unit. So I think there's a lot of times it can feel difficult, especially when you have your own parents and your own family dynamics, to remember to be a team towards them as well. And so, one thing we talked about was making sure that when you are expressing like, hey, we're not going to come do this, or we're going to change the way, we will only be there for dessert. Don't make it a, well, my husband, Marcus said that he doesn't want to, like, he really can't be with the family the whole day, so we're just coming for dessert, right? The right way to do it is to talk about things as right? We've decided that it's a bit too much for us to go to all of the houses for dinner, so we're going to do dinner at this house and then we'll do dessert at your house.
Not using your spouse as a scapegoat. When you have responsibilities to fulfill, is that you need to communicate with the other person your expectations of what you need from them to fulfill these responsibilities. So, if you're the person who is the lead for preparing a meal, then you can't assume that the other person has any concept of how they can be helpful.
Right.
If you have expectations about how they're going to help, it's your responsibility to communicate those expectations clearly so that they can meet those expectations.
So for example, if you're cooking a full Thanksgiving meal, it might be helpful to say to your husband, hey, I know you're super excited to watch the football game today, and I really want to support that, but I also really need you to keep an eye on the children because they're little, and I can't watch them while I'm cooking a full meal for your family.
Well, and this is a great opportunity to talk about when you're having those kinds of conversations, in order for them to not become divisive or cause friction, is stating things in a positive way and, using like I statements, but also like, hey, I know we both want to create like this environment, or we want to like achieve this thing. We want to, implement these traditions. So describing in a positive terms, like the things that we're trying to work together to achieve and how the other person can help you achieve them, rather than falling into the trap of like, getting frustrated and being critical and lashing out and like, you're not doing this, or like, there's something wrong with you that, but it's easy to fall into those traps when you're under the increased stresses of the holiday season.
And I think the final thing is making sure as you come together, you are bringing your families together in certain ways, or at least they are being impacted by the decisions you make. So making sure that you are having these conversations early and that you're communicating those to your family clearly and effectively early in the process so that they can plan around those things. The last thing you want to do is like surprise your in-laws by either showing up or telling them a week before, no, we have these other plans. So making sure that you're being clear about what it's going to look like and how you're going to be engaged in that holiday, I think is really important. Traditions are really beautiful. And when your children look back and their friends say like, what was Christmas like in your house, or what was Easter like? These are the things that they will carry on to their children. So like, take the time to do those things and to make it meaningful for them, because like that's also a beautiful memory of, the things that they will remember. Like one thing is amazing to me that still sticks with our 7-year-old was, I think 2 years ago, she got sick on Halloween. It was supposed to be everybody went trick-or-treating and she was so disappointed. So you and I had candy that we were going to give out to the kids. And we we basically put on different hats and we would stand behind different doors in the house, and she would knock and trick or treat, and we'd have like a new thing.
Yeah, did they have COVID? They were like COVID
I think
positive.
They had COVID, so it was like one of those things that like was just so silly, but like they remember that and they bring it up even now, right? So like it's just like those things are magic, and don't stress too much. Pick a few things that are really meaningful to you and go with it.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us for this video. Please join the conversation in the comments below or find us on social media. Happy holidays. What would you say for a couple who they're navigating those decisions for the first time? What's your number one top tip to help them navigate that?
Get what you want. Just kidding.
I'm gonna get what I want.
You should be open